Hello class, and welcome to Chapter 6. This week you're going to be learning about the cognitive and physical development in middle childhood. Piaget's stage for this is concrete operations, which is ages 7 through 11. Children are becoming less egocentric. They now rarely confuse appearances with reality. So when I did the conservation trick with liquids with Hudson, he thought it was different, even though he actually saw me pour the same amount of liquid into just a different shaped container. When he is 7, he will have that all figured out and know that it's just because the containers are different, but it's the same amount of liquid. Concrete operational children, they resist reaching conclusions that are contrary to known facts. But they do reach conclusions based on their knowledge of the world. So the more enhanced a child's world is, the easier it will be for them to come to realistic conclusions. They apply psychological operations to abstract entities. As we've been learning about Piaget, his theory had so many good concepts and made good sense. But there are a couple things about Piaget that you want to look at critically. When we get into adolescence, he does overestimate their cognitive competence. He's very vague concerning processes of change. He does not account for variability in child's performances. We have to remember that each child is their own person and will develop according to their own timetable. And then he undervalues the influences of the socio-cultural environment. A child's environment makes an incredible impact on their cognitive development. We're going to learn about the information process strategies, a child's working memory, where a small number of thoughts and ideas can be stored briefly before they can be transferred to the long-term memory where it will be permanently stored. Even as adults, we use memory strategies, so kids figure this out too, and they can even be taught strategies to help them learn new information, keeping organization in the things they're learning, elaborating, and this too depends on the child's experiences. You can look in a book at zebras, but if you can go to the zoo and see a zebra in person, that child is going to better learn about zebras. Metacognition may be a new term for you. Basically, that is effective use of those strategies for learning and remembering. Meta-memory refers to an intuitive understanding of memory. Metacognitive knowledge is increased understanding of awareness and cognitive processes. And then cognitive self-regulation is where children can identify goals, select those strategies, and then monitor the outcomes. Some theories of intelligence you're going to learn about in this chapter: the hierarchical view of intelligence. John Carroll is a name you're going to read about there. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. You probably have already learned about those. He identified originally 7 different intelligences, but then he later identified 2 additional ones, so 9 altogether. And your book, in my copy, it's on page 196. Those are linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, naturalistic, and existential. Boy, I can't say that very well. So many of us are more intelligent in one or more of those areas than others. For example, some of you may be very musically inclined, and so you have an intelligence in music that others may not have. Prompted by Gardner's theory, researchers have then begun to look at other non-traditional aspects of intelligence. So emotional intelligence is one of those that's come about in more recent years. People who are emotionally intelligent tend to have more satisfying interpersonal relationships, have greater self-esteem, and are more effective in the workplace. So I know many of you are nursing majors, and you may have that emotional intelligence that may make you very good at the nursing career that you are seeking. Then you will learn about Robert Sternberg's theory of successful intelligence. He says people are using 3 different kinds of abilities to achieve their own personal goals. Some of us are more analytic, some of us are more creative, and some of us are more practical. Binet and then his sidekick Simon, they developed a way to determine needed special instruction, and they basically coined the term mental age and how that was measured. Measuring the child's performance corresponded to their chronological age. So some children may have a mental age that's greater than their chronological age. Some children may have a mental age that's less than their chronological age. And they use that to distinguish bright from dull children. Then Louis Terman used Binet's work and created the Stanford Binet in 1916, which we know today as the Intelligent Quotient, or IQ, which is simply the ratio of your mental age to your chronological age multiplied by 100. Today, IQ scores are determined by comparing the child's test performance to others of their same age who have also taken the test. And they still divide that by 100 just to represent it as an average. In addition to the Stanford Binet, we also have the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, and then the Kaufman Assessment Battery. So there's different ways to measure children's intelligence. We also look at the heredity and environmental factors, and when it comes to determining if something's nature or nurture, doing twin studies is such a good measure. You can look at identical twins versus fraternal twins, and then if identical twins were separated at birth and adopted into 2 different families, you can look at how those children differ. So that would give you an idea if their similarities are more fraternal because of their identical measurement, or whether it is their environment. This chapter also looks at the impact of ethnicity and socioeconomic status. Ethnic groups do differ in their performance on intelligence tests, and it may depend on how those children are pushed. I know children of Asian descent often are very much encouraged to do well academically, and their scores typically tend to be higher. Children from economically advantaged homes are more likely to do better, and it's just possibly because those families can afford to do more things that could give that child a richer environment, although it doesn't take money to give your child a rich environment. Many opportunities are afforded in communities that are free, and it's just a matter of the parents making that a priority and doing things with their children. This chapter also looks at children that are special, whether they are gifted or have special needs. Traditionally, gifted children have been those with the highest IQ scores, but some children that are gifted don't have that higher IQ. They just have a talent in an area that makes them gifted in that particular area. So the arts, the music, some would say even sports, doing well at sports might be that child's giftedness. You're going to look at the term divergent thinking, and when I think of that, I think of if each one of us were to list all the uses of a paperclip, those that have more uses are more divergent thinkers. Some might think, well, a paperclip is to hold papers together, but others are going to say, okay, we can use it to pull elastic through a casing on your pants. We could use it as a toothpick. We could do the rubber band paperclip snap trick. So there could be a whole list. Some of you could really come outside the box and have all kinds of uses for a paperclip, and you would be known as a more divergent thinker. This chapter looks at children with disabilities. There's intellectual disabilities, basically limitations in intellectual IQ, those IQs that are lower than 70. Children with learning disabilities, could have a limit in that intellectual skill, but they also could be limited in their social skills or their practical skills. Children with learning disabilities, we know, have difficulty mastering one or more academic subjects. They can have a normal intelligence, but they just struggle, let's say, in writing, in reading, in math. Basically, they don't have to suffer in other conditions to explain that poor performance. They may have difficulty reading individual words. Those children are known to be dyslexic. In their brain, it flips the word, and so they have troubles reading. Some just have difficulty comprehending what words mean. And if you're like me, you have more difficulties in the math area than maybe in the linguistic area. You're going to learn about attention deficit hyperactive disorder. You probably know that more as ADHD. I think this is one of the biggest challenges for those of you who are going to be teachers, because identifying what that is, and we do know that about 6% of all school-age children do have ADHD, so identifying it's difficult, and then knowing how to. We also know that boys outnumber girls by a 3-to-1 ratio. So with ADHD, those children can be hyperactive, they can just be inattentive, or they can be impulsive.